War Dogs, Episode 3, The Rhodesian Bush War. By the mid-1970s, the white-led government of Rhodesia was fighting for its survival. Once a British colony, Rhodesia had unilaterally declared independence in 1965, sparking international sanctions and a brutal civil conflict. The Rhodesian Bush War was a savage, undeclared war waged in shadows and scrubland. On one side stood the Rhodesian security forces, mostly white, mostly well-trained, and increasingly desperate. On the other, two main guerrilla armies, Zanla, backed by Communist China, and Zipra, backed by the Soviet Union. Outnumbered, under global embargo, and surrounded by hostile neighbors, the Rhodesians turned to foreign volunteers to fill their ranks. They didn't ask many questions. They just needed men who could kill. Texas, 1977. Tony Karsten stood outside a dusty post office in West Texas, holding the classified ad he'd torn from Soldier of Fortune. He'd mailed his reply 2 weeks ago. What came back was a single typed letter with an airline ticket to Johannesburg, a contact name in Salisbury, and a waiver that warned, "You will be treated as a Rhodesian soldier under Rhodesian law. You may be killed. No insurance, no repatriation." Tony folded it, slipped it in his jacket, and went home to pack. The flight from Texas to South Africa was long and tense. There were fewer Americans on board than he expected. A couple of Brits, one South African, a Frenchman with a homemade tattoo of a skull on his forearm. They touched down in Johannesburg, where a blacked-out military shuttle took them across the border under night cover. A second plane, smaller, hotter, louder, landed on a hard strip of tarmac near Salisbury. It smelled like dust and cordite. Tony's boots hit red soil on a base surrounded by thornbush and sandbag. Boot camp wasn't about teaching men how to fight. It was about unlearning everything they thought they knew. Instructors barked in Rhodesian accented English and didn't care if you'd served in Vietnam or Korea or the Foreign Legion. They trained with worn FN FALs, surplus AKs, Czech VZ-58s, and a handful of rusting M16s from the days before sanctions bit hard. Tony adapted fast. He was leaner than the other Americans. He didn't talk much. He shot well, moved silently, and didn't complain. By week 3, he was running fire and movement drills in 110-degree heat with full kit and a sandbag in his ruck. By week 4, he was in combat. Mount Darwin, Rhodesia, August 1977. The bush was quiet, too quiet. Tony's fire team was moving along a narrow trail when they hit a tripwire flare. Gunfire erupted from the tall grass. Zanla guerrillas in Chinese camo opened up with SKSs and RPD light machine guns. Tony dropped flat, exhaled, and squeezed off 3 shots from his FN. One guerrilla's chest exploded in a red mist. A second stumbled back into the trees. Then the screaming started. The firefight lasted 10 minutes. When it was over, 5 bodies lay in the brush. 2 were Tony's. He didn't say anything, just reloaded and walked with the others to the extraction point, sweat running down his spine. He was transferred into a Fire Force team, Rhodesia's Rapid Reaction Strike Force. They dropped into combat zones from choppers like the old Hueys back in Nam. But these were French Alouettes, with door gunners shouting in Afrikaans. One jump went bad. They landed too close to the contact point. Zanla fighters opened up early, spraying the LZ with automatic fire. One of Tony's teammates caught a round in the neck and died before he hit the dirt. Tony rolled behind a termite mound, sighted, and took down 2 more with short, controlled bursts. His ears rang. His hands stayed steady. That night, he couldn't sleep, not because of guilt, but because of how familiar it all felt. He met Balderas after the op, a wiry, intense ex-Marine from El Paso. They shared a smoke behind the barracks, boots still caked in red Rhodesian dust. "You look like shit, gringo," Balderas said, lighting up. Tony shrugged. So do you. They talked war. Balderas had done 2 tours in Nam, recon mostly. Now he was running ops with the Rhodesian SAS. Unofficial, deniable, bloody work. They clicked. 2 men with no illusions and nothing left at home. One night, under the stars, they talked while sitting on ammo crates near a rusting Land Rover. You think we're gonna win this? Tony asked. Balderas took a long pull from his warm beer. Nah. We're outnumbered. These white boys got guts, but not enough sons. The blacks got numbers, and China's feeding them gear. So why stay? Tony asked. Balderas shrugged. Well, Holmes, I kinda like it. It's simple out here. Kill the blackies, get paid. Then, after a beat, he said, but my uncle, he runs some shit in Tijuana. Big weed grower. Exporter. Not sure if it's cartel level, but close. He needs someone tough. Someone who knows war. He looked over at Tony. Says he trusts a gringo more than some of La Raza. Says Mexicans turn when the money gets real. You got the look. Tony didn't answer, but he didn't say no. Tony finished his contract with the Rhodesian Light Infantry. His last op was a tracking mission into Mozambique. Brutal and pointless. 3 men killed for a suspected weapons cache that turned out to be empty crates. He didn't re-enlist. Instead, he caught a ride on a military transport to Cape Town, then flew commercial into Houston. No welcome party, just heat and silence. In his jacket was a folded slip of paper. Miguel Rodriguez, Tijuana Norte, private line. Ask for Don Miguel. He'll know who sent you. Tony Karsten had fought in 2 wars. What came next wasn't a war, but it would require every tactic and weapon he'd ever learned to use. This concludes episode 3 of War Dogs. Stay tuned to Classic Historical Tales for the final episode of War Dogs.